Welcome on in, everybody. It's your boy Gsluke here for our round 4 live stream for the Fedex St. Jude Championship. We've had ourselves an absolute banger start to the week with multiple near GPP takedowns. We've had over $8,000 in profits on the prop side, and we still have one round to work with. So hopefully we can add to that total here for Sunday by going to cover all that you need to know for props and for DFS tomorrow to go out there and have yourself a profitable day. So first off, welcome to chat. We do have a little bit of a Crown and Coke in hand. It's in Chick-fil-A cup because it's the biggest volume cup, and we've got ourselves like an hour-long live stream here and a lot of see, was that it? All right, yeah, looks like the mic is fixed. All right, let's get this started. So first off, sorry if you couldn't hear me there for a little bit. Welcome to the chat. Let's get this thing rocking, shall we? So let's go ahead, share our screen, and take a look at how the golf course was playing, which today played pretty easy. Honestly, a little bit easier than I expected. I thought we'd see the course maybe get a little bit firmer, maybe get a little bit more difficult as the week went on, and only got about a 1/10 of shot more difficult, right? So day 1 and 2 played about 1.4 under par. For moving day, which is typically the easiest of the 3 rounds, played about a 1/10 of a shot harder. So you did see the pendulum start to sway that direction, right? You saw the course start to play a little bit more difficult, but it hasn't quite reached its apex at this point. So I think tomorrow, with the difficult pin locations, with even more drying of the golf course, you're probably going to see it play slightly more difficult once again, but still much easier than the historical average here. Rather than something like half a stroke under par or maybe even over par like we've seen a few years at TPC Southwinds, it's still going to play at least half a stroke under. I would imagine probably right around a stroke under par tomorrow. So this golf course, of course, playing a little bit different because of all the rain that they've gotten. And really, one day isn't going to change that, right? It's still going to play relatively soft. I would be surprised, I should say, I wouldn't be surprised if they kept it as preferred lies, right? They didn't change that. They kept the ball in hand. But if they do change it to, playing it down, I could see that, but it really wouldn't surprise me if they played it as preferred lies again. So keep an eye out for that, especially if you're playing props for Sunday. That's going to have a huge impact on the score there. But in terms of weather, it looks really similar to Saturday, right? The sustained winds for most of the day are relatively low. Now, towards midday, they do spike up a little bit. You can see they go from pretty much non-existent up there to like 5 to 9 miles an hour. But that's only for like an hour or two period. So in general, right, conditions look pretty solid for tomorrow. And in terms of the wind gusts, they're non-existent too. So I would think maybe with harder pins, they're going to see less birdies out there for Sunday, but you're still going to see scoring much better than most years out there. So worth noting, especially when we're going after a Sunday showdown slate where you do have placement points in mind, right? And anytime you have placement points, you've got to consider how easy or difficult, right, the golf course is going to be. If it's going to be a birdie fest where you see like a 2-3 under par scoring average, the 13 points that you're even getting for first place might be negligible, right? You've got to have guys that are shooting 6-7 under par if the scoring average is going to be like -2. But with it being a little bit more difficult, those placement points become ever so slightly more important, right? Those extra 13 you get for first place, the extra 6 or 7 points that you're getting for second or third place mean just a little bit more, right? When the ceiling round might be something like 5-6 under par, right? You can see there are a bunch of -5s today. Then Justin Rose, of course, we talked him up on the live stream yesterday, went out there and shot 9 under par. Speaking of, guys, yesterday was an absolute print fest. I can't believe I forgot to mention that. We made over $3,000 over there in Showdown and nearly $10,000 over there on Showdown. So one of our better Showdown slates of all time. No takedown, or else it would have been my best Showdown slate of all time. but multiple runner-up finishes. We had a few takedowns in the community. In fact, one of our community members just out-edged me in one of the Largeville GPPs for a takedown. So if I'm not going to win the GPP, I'm glad that it's at least somebody in the community, right, that took down first place. And yeah, if you didn't have a good day today and you were a part of the Patreon page, you might want to pick a new hobby because it looked like it was a print fest across the board. And in terms of our props, right, I think conditions may be going to be slightly harder to come by here for Sunday. So when we talk about the prop side of things towards the end of the live stream, we're going to have to keep that in mind, right? Pin locations, though we don't have them out as of now, let's just double check on that. They haven't been published, at least as of right this second. I'm expecting them to be a little bit more tucked than we saw for rounds 2 and 3, and potentially for conditions to reflect that. When we're looking at the weather, trying to find a potential edge, I don't see one as of right now. You can see towards midday, you see a little spike in terms of the weather, but that's pretty much going to affect everyone, right? If it spikes right around midday, the guys that are finishing the round early are going to be dealing with that for the last few holes. And then the guys that are teeing off late, right, your leaders, they're going 2 sums off of their first tee, by the way. So a little bit of a different format there. They're also going to have to deal with the winds for at least a few holes too. So I don't see a massive edge. Maybe if you're teeing off and you have your entire round during this little set of wind, maybe it's a slight disadvantage. But when you look at some of the other models, they're not calling for much, right? In fact, this model is calling for that slight patch of wind to come in a little bit later. Medio Blue has it very flat. Icon model, once again, pretty flat. GFS model, same thing. And then this ECM model, relatively flat, right? Maybe slightly higher winds in the afternoon on this model, but nothing that we'd go out there and play an edge for. So if you're trying to use the weather to find an edge for Sunday Showdown, I don't know if it's going to be as pronounced an edge as you would be hoping for. But of course, with early morning conditions, which leads you to receptive greens, pristine greens, you are going to get a slight advantage there. But because of the placement points, it's probably more than made up for. So if you're going to do anything for Sunday Showdown, right, as per usual, right, you've got to take a few chalky pieces towards the top that you think you're going to get the job done. And then you've got to mix in a few early guys that take advantage, right, of the receptive greens. They can go out there and roll their rock well, right, on those perfect surfaces, and then mix them in with the chalk that goes off late. So it's a very typical Sunday Showdown slate. Sometimes we do get that weather edge to go along with it, which kind of helps us with our decision-making process, but not really the case this time. So in terms of scoring average, just to summarize, right around a 1 under par scoring average. And if you're looking at the weather edge, I don't think there is one, right? I think that the weather is pretty flat for tomorrow. Maybe you slightly favor the AM guys because of the receptive greens, but like most Sunday Showdown slates, we're still going to have to take guys towards the top of the board, right? We're still going to have to try and get some of the placement points up there in the top 3 to 5. And that's going to dictate a lot of our process for tomorrow. Let's bring up our showdown sheet and get ready to talk some DFS, shall we? Of course, guys, we do the weather, the golf course first, which we just completed there. Then we go through DFS and then props afterwards. So if you're wondering about props, what we're getting to for Sunday, I promise you we'll be getting to that at some point, probably here in like 15 minutes. But for now, we're going to talk some DFS, right? Some Sunday Showdown. So if you've got any questions for tomorrow, feel free to go ahead and throw those down in chat. But other than that, let's go ahead and get this thing rocking. So what do we got in terms of questions? You can't hear you. You should be able to hear me now. I think that was only for the first minute or so of the live stream. MMA lineups looking, you're done too much, Marshall. Honestly, I only played like 30, 40 lineups, and I haven't even checked yet, Nathan. In fact, my main exposure for today is on props, which you've reminded me I should check on because my first fight should be going on right now, and I need somebody to not get knocked out. So if Dawkins got knocked out, I'm going to be pretty pissed off. Let's see. So it's the first round. So it just started. It looks like a pretty even fight from the strikes perspective. Hey, if anyone's watching that UFC right now, you probably are, Nathan. I know you're a big fan. Please tell me that Chris Dawkins can survive this fight. I just took under knockouts for Roundtree, which I know he's a knockout artist, so he's definitely capable of knocking out Dawkins. But I'm hoping that Dawkins can hang in there. He's a Philly boy, right? He should be tough. Let's see. Thought Straka or Clark would go off in Showdown today, but they sucked. Do they go off tomorrow, going off together? So I actually faded them for props. I don't know if you stuck around the whole time, Chris. I ended up taking a few fades for them for Showdown and over there for props. But yeah, for Sunday Showdown, I'm not sure, man, right? Because Straka, he's guaranteed in the top 50. Same thing with Wyndham Clark. They don't have all that much like incentive to go out there and have success. Now, granted, if they start off like -2 through 3, they're probably going to go out there and try to keep it going. But if they start like Straka did today, right, with a little bogey on the first hole, it might not go all that well for good old Sip Straka. So I would probably stay away. Your boots on the ground, okay. You've been there all 3 days. We'll be there tomorrow too. Well, Chris, few questions. Did you see them rolling the greens or cutting the greens when you were leaving? And when did you leave the golf course? Because if you stayed till like the last hour or so play, I would love to know if they had the rollers out. Do you think they've given up? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I think they've given up. You don't think so? I just don't know about that. Doc has just got knocked out. Hey, I told you to let me know at the very least. It stopped updating over here on ESPN, so I had a feeling something happened because it stopped updating, and I was like, oh boy, someone let me know if he got knocked out. Did he actually? Yeah, he did, right? That's unfortunate. Yeah, somebody told me that knows UFC a lot better than me, or at least tells me they knew UFC more than I do. Told me to bet the under on knockouts in that fight. And of course, like you said, Dawkins knocked him out. And it was like in the first like 2 minutes of the fight too, right? Okay, noted. Not going to call out who it was, but somebody did tell me that was a good bet. We'll just leave it at that. You say KO'd. He's dead? Oh, boy. They were cutting the greens when you left about 4 p.m. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Chris, right? There's no weather overnight. It's supposed to be relatively dry. I'm thinking that they might not even do preferred lies. That's the main question there, because if they were able to roll the greens, that means that they're not going to do preferred lies. So still probably doesn't answer that question, but we'll have to see what ends up happening there. All right, in terms of Showdown, guys, for Sunday Showdown, of course, there's chalk that we're going to mix in, and then there's going to be pivots, right? So some of the chalk that I've got in my player pool that I want to point out would be like a Jordan Spieth and a Max Homa. Both of them are elite tier players, right? People we consider to be perennial, like just FedEx Cup playoff type of players. Those are the kind of guys I want to take as chalk. The players I'm avoiding, right, are the Lucas Glovers of the world, the Taylor Moores of the world that are a little bit new to this kind of stage. If anyone's going to have any type of nerves for Sunday, it's going to be these sort of players, right? Jordan Spieth guaranteed in the playoffs, right? Same thing for Max Homa. I believe Glover, same thing with Taylor Moore, are at least guaranteed into the top 50. But it's not like they're making it to East Lake every single year, right? It's not like these sort of players are used to making it into every kind of major, right? Like a Jordan Spieth or a Max Homa are. So unlike those other two players, right, they're going to feel the nerves, right? If they go out there, they have a day tomorrow, it's a life-changing situation. It's not just from the payout perspective, but also you've got to think about the exemptions that these players are getting. And of course, the status for next year, right? They can set their schedule. They can literally get into every single field that they want to. It's quite literally life-altering. So for somebody like a Taylor Moore, Lucas Glover up there, at least for me, right, the script that I'm playing is that we're going to see the cream rise to the top, right? And I think for Sunday Showdown, you should have some sort of script in mind, right? If you think that your script for Sunday is that Lucas Glover goes out there and boat races the field, especially because he won last week, right? It's like 10, 12 straight rounds that this guy has been an absolute heater, then do so, right? Like if you think he sustains that, then use that as your Sunday Showdown thing, right? And if that's going to be the case, some of these elite tier players probably don't get there, right? Because like a Jordan Spieth and Max Homa, they probably have to have a top 3 and a good performance to get into that optimal lineup. And if Lucas Glover boat races the field, they're probably not in that lineup, or at least a little bit less likely, right, to get into that optimal lineup. Just run with your script, right? My script for Sunday, I already told you guys, is that the cream rises to the top, right? You see that at elite tier events all the time, especially when the pressure is on. And I know that this isn't a major championship type of pressure cooker, but that's the idea that I'm going with. In terms of pivots, right? I'm looking for high upside players that are at least within striking distance. And a few examples of that, right, would be a Scotty Scheffler and a Colin Morikawa. Scheffler, we already know that he backdoors a top 10 in pretty much every single event. So would you be surprised if he went out there tomorrow and shot like 5-6 under par and ended up finishing like T5 or something like that? I know I wouldn't be. So I'm definitely going to get exposure there. Colin Morikawa, same thing, right? He was a real chalky play going into the week, but because he's not at the tippy top of the leaderboard, right? He's just moderately owned, right? 16.9%. So it's not like he's a pivot play by any means, but you're still talking about a player that fits the golf course to a T and is extremely streaky, right? An extremely volatile player that we like for a showdown kind of format. So because of that, right, those are the pivots that I'm getting to. So up top, right, I think you should pick a few foundational pieces to build around, right? If you like a Tommy Fleetwood, you could throw him in there. I'll leave that up to your imagination on whether I'm playing him or not. I'll just say the fact that I'm playing Spieth and Colin Morikawa, right, established tour pros that are playing well, I'm going into the final round, should probably tell you what I'm doing with Fleetwood too, right? As he's a very similar player. Hint, hint. But yeah, that's the idea, right? Play the established tour pros, right? Play Spieth, play Colin Morikawa, play Tommy Fleetwood, right? I'll just tell you flat out. Play the guys that have been there before up top, right? They're chalky. They're in position. If they go out there, they even shoot like 3-4 under par, they're going to have a real easy avenue to the optimal lineup. Whereas if you take a calculated gamble against a few of the newcomers, well, maybe it pays off for you, right? Maybe Lucas Glover does shoot 5 under par, right, and win this golf tournament. If that happens, so be it, right? I lose for Sunday Showdown, right? Same thing with Taylor Moore, right? Taylor Moore, he goes out there, he shoots like 5 under par, wins the golf tournament. Oh, well, good job, Taylor Moore, right? You ended up sinking me for Sunday Showdown. I'm just betting against that. I don't expect that to happen, right? Like I said, they're going to be a little bit more nervous than their counterparts. And I think that the guys that don't have as much to lose are going to play like they don't have as much to lose. That's really what I think happens tomorrow. And that's the script that I'm going with. And like I mentioned, though, you don't have to play that script, right? If you really, really like a Tommy Fleetwood, we'll lock them in every lineup, right? That's fine. If you think that a Lucas Glover or a Taylor Moore has their career-defining moment tomorrow, well, play them, right? Take them in your showdown lineups. That's fine, right? I'm not going to sit there and tell you what's going to happen. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, right? I'm making my best guess, right? And for Sunday Showdown, when you can't play everybody, right, even with 150 lineups like I'm going to play tomorrow, you've got to make pivots. You've got to fade a few players, and you've got to take a few guys and put all your eggs in one basket. So that's what I'm thinking about that, and at least with my pivots and elite tier options up top. In terms of our values, there's a few chalky pieces I'm taking, but not a lot of mega chalk, right? So in terms of quote-unquote chalky pieces, we've got like a JT Poston, a Siwoo Kim, and Eric Cole, who are all like sub 10% owned. I guess JT Poston, I've got there at 14.4%, but it's not egregious chalk, right? Whereas you've got the guys like Taylor Moore that are like 30% owned. You've got players like Adam Hadwin getting quite a bit of ownership. Adam Shank, pretty chalky. Ben Griffin down there that maybe getting a little bit more attention. Whereas like a moderately owned play like a Putnam, a Kurt Kitayama, a Nick Taylor down here are in position to at least get a little bit of placement points and are just elite tier players, right? For Sunday Showdown on a golf course that's playing a stroke under par, you're going to see guys that are shooting 5-6 under par. And now there might only be like 7-8 guys that shoot that 5-6 under par round. And to take all 6 of them in the same lineup, right, is going to be really hard to do. If you can get 4 of them in there, right, and then maybe the 2 others are these chalky pieces that just shoot like 3-4 under and then get you that top 5 placement, that's how you win a showdown contest, right? You get the spike performances down here in the mid-tier range. Maybe it's Kitayama, like I said. Maybe it's Eric Cole, right? That's really good at Bermuda grass. And then you pick the right chalk up top. That's how you win a Sunday Showdown GBP. So it's hard, right? It's just as difficult as rounds 1 through 3. The placement points still make it easier or harder to go out there and have success. The important part is to note that you have to have those placement points, right? You've got to have the winner. You've probably got to have at least 2 of the top 5 finishers along with the winner. And then you've got to have the guys that are shooting that spike round, usually going off early for Sunday Showdown. So that's the idea. That's the player pool. I guess worth noting, I like JT Poston as a bounce back. Had his by far his worst round today. Siwoo Kim has a really good Sunday Showdown record. Eric Cole, once again, a kind of disappointing round 3. So hopefully can get that bounce back today. And then Andrew Putnam, another player that was chalky for main slate. And then now that he's kind of just been average over the first 3 rounds, I've only got him at 8.6%. So a lot of leverage to be had. Kurt Kitayama, right, only like 6%. Nick Taylor down here, I've only got at 2.6% owned. All plays that you should consider there for tomorrow. So that's all I've got for Showdown. Let's go over any questions that you've got, and then talk some props. Let's see what we've got. They were cutting the greens. Oh, that's right. We already went over that. Not sure if your UFC is reliable. You mean my UFC guy? It's just a buddy of mine that let me know about the pick. So it's not like I'm paying for it. Hey, the thing is, Abrasive, if people give me picks and they don't hit, it's not their fault. It's my fault for putting it in, right? So I'm not going to blame them regardless. And that's my take on it. They got John, who says, who do you like for round 4, Chris, with you being there firsthand? Yeah, let us know. He said Taylor Montgomery is interesting. Let's see. What's his ownership at? I'll double check on that for you. It's got to be, I think he's sub 1% owned. So if you're looking for some sort of pivot, I don't hate that. Let's see. Yeah, I've got Montgomery 1% owned exactly, actually. Don't hate it. Could be a good pivot to get to. Let's talk some props. So they posted the prop boards before we got on stream here. So I took a look at it. It looks very similar to what we saw the first 2 days. And of course, yesterday, we did have our prop slip hit on Underdog over there for the stream. So that was pretty nice, right? It was Straka over bogeys, and it was Wyndham under birdies, right? Both of them easily hit. Straka had over double his projection, and Wyndham hit by hole 15. So that was pretty nice. Unfortunately, right, the board has kind of been adjusted. So yesterday, it was a little bit closer to where I think it should be. And then today, it's even more accurate than before. So you've got guys starting at 5 birdies there. For strokes, it's very similar, except priced slightly lower than what we saw for Saturday. And then over here in Underdog, it's very similar too. The boards, rather than having a lot of differences, are a lot more similar this time around. So if you're looking for discrepancies between the sites, there's obviously a few to be had, right? Especially from like the birdie perspective. There's quite a few birdie discrepancies, but with strokes, not quite what we had there from round 3. So the thought process a little bit more nuanced than maybe what we had for rounds 1 and 2, right? Round 3 was a little bit more complicated, right? As we had overs and unders that we were taking. But for round 4, multiply that by a little bit, right? We've got an even more complicated slate, and it comes down to our normal Sunday Showdown. We want to perhaps look at fades for some of the top end players, and then perhaps look at, some overs for birdies for guys that are chasing. So just to give you an idea here, right? Taylor Moore, who's been playing well, don't get me wrong, right? Is he at 4 birdies on Prize Picks, or is he even up here at all? Let's see. Doesn't look like they even have him up here on Prize Picks. I have to imagine he'd probably be at 4 birdies. So here at 4.5 on Underdog, that would be like a prime fade candidate. And let's find one more, right? That's in contention that we think doesn't have it. So they've got Glover at 68. What is Glover at over here on Prize Picks? They've got to have him on, right? He's the leader. So they've got Taylor Moore at 68.5. So they definitely have Glover on here. You'd have to imagine. Luke, there he is, 68.5, right? So obviously it's 0.5 strokes higher than what they have over there. So maybe you want to take the over for bogeys. Maybe you take the over for strokes, right? There's a bunch of different ways you could take it. But Lucas Glover, right? He's also, I believe, at 4 birdies over here on Prize Picks. Let's see. Yeah, they got him up there at 4 birdies, right? You could fade any number of those guys at the top of the board. So there's always value to take. Let's take a look at the rest of the board. Make sure it's the best available before we go ahead and fire on this. As of right now, I think that's the main slip that I'm looking at. But again, let's confirm, right? Let's look at the rest of the board. Again, very similar to round 3. Almost all these projections are, I don't want to say identical, but very similar to what we had today. And if that's the case, right, it makes my job really easy, right? I can just kind of like rinse and repeat because we went out there and absolutely killed them today. See, any questions? Underdog still hasn't graded live. Yeah, I saw that. You saw me refresh the screen there, right? To see if it did. Yeah, it didn't refresh yet. Hideki Birdies looks pretty good. What do we think? Let's take a look at it, huh? Is he at 4? Is that 4.5 birdies? What is he on Prize Picks? Is he at 4 there? Is that 4.5? Do you mean for the over? I'm kind of confused. 4.5 seems pretty fair to me. Let me bring up the scoreboard. We'll take a look at how he played today. But 4.5, at least to me, that seems pretty fair. 1 second here, Nico. Let's find Colin. I mean, he made like 6 today, right? I know he went over on his birdie prop, no doubt. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 birdies, right? But he had none on the second half. So he started off super hot, played really well, and then completely sold on the back 9. In fact, he actually missed a prop for me when it came to fantasy score because of how badly that he played on the back 9. So I don't know if I love that. I don't love the momentum, that's for sure. It looked like he completely lost his swing there for the last like 9 or 10 holes. So yeah, I'd probably stay away, man. It feels like a pretty good prop. Scotty over 67, I probably wouldn't do so. Something I used to do a lot of comparisons, right, would be the DraftKings odds. And I'll just show you those. Let's take a look at them. So Scotty Scheffler. Where are you at, Scotty? So he's at 66.5, right? Now, granted, he's juiced towards the over, right? So 67 is probably a pretty good projection for him. But like, I feel like that's fair. Like 3 under par, that's probably what I'd put Scotty Scheffler at for tomorrow, plus or minus like 0.1, 0.2 strokes. So I'd probably stay away. Just more theory. You feel like he's chasing, has an earlier time. I could see it. Say less. Yeah, I'd probably fade though, because like, let's look at his other props, Nico, right? Like maybe the other categories make sense. Let's see. I fucked up my screen sharing there, so we'll bring it back up. But Hideki, right? They got him at 68.5 strokes. Like what's his strokes line on DK, right? Like, look, he's minus 140 for the under, right? Like, wouldn't you rather bet that? Right? Take him minus 140 for the under. Like that's a pretty sweet prop, right? And when we compare it here to Taylor Moore, like let's look at Taylor Moore's strokes prop. Like this, I think this will help us out here, right? Like he's at 69.5 right now. Granted, look at this. He's juiced towards the under, right? So they think he's going to go under 69.5 to get to 5 birdies, right? That's asking quite a bit. So this Hideki prop, believe it or not, I'm liking there. Let's look at what Glover's at. So they've got Glover at 69.5 too. So they would probably have him posted at 69 strokes. Where's Glover at again? We're probably going to fade that Glover prop. He's at 68. Yeah, for sure. All right. So this is going to be the slip that we go with for the live stream, guys. But that thought process that we just went through, right, where I'm looking at the sportsbook odds to kind of like confirm my prior suspicions is a really good way to go about it. So this will be the underdog slip that we did, right? It's Taylor Moore under, it's Lucas Glover over. And now let's go over here to Prize Picks and find you something on that side. So let's bring up Prize Picks board. My mic muted. Hopefully you could hear me, guys. Sorry about that. It said that my mic was muted. Hopefully that was only for a short time there. Let's go through this Prize Picks board. Certified boner killer. Not for me. I loved how he played today. He absolutely killed it for me. I took his over for strokes and his under for birdies, and he killed it. They took Glover off. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, bro. That prop was way off. It was a stroke and a half off. Mike has been fine. So that's crazy, dude. My mic, it has like a mute button, right? And it like flashes when it's like muted, and it was flashing. So I was like, oh shit, right? It's probably been muted for at least a few minutes. Guess not. Hey, I'm glad, but it's just tripping me out over here. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? All right, let's look at the Prize Picks board. So in terms of strokes, I don't know. There's probably some value to be had, but like it seems a little bit sharper than what they have over there in Underdog. Just off of prior inspection, maybe this Cam Davis prop could be a fade. Let's see. What do they got Cam Davis at? Where's he at? I had to have passed him, right? He's at 68.5. And what is he on prize picks? Right? 68. Okay, so maybe we don't take that. Let's see. What's Corey Connors at? 68.5. Same thing. Okay. So this would be leans towards the over, but maybe not enough value to go ahead and smash. Let's check. Yeah, this prize picks board, not nearly as mispriced as what we had in Underdog. At least based on what I'm seeing. Like, there's not as many obvious plays. Like in Underdog, I saw like 4 or 5 plays that we could easily get to. Over here in prize picks, it's a little bit more reasonable. Let me look at Justin Rose. I know Rose played well, but yeah, he's juiced towards the over and at 68.5. Like, I don't necessarily hate that for a fade, especially because he's juiced towards the over and 0.5 higher. So for prize picks, I'm probably going to have to run my projections before entering anything. Let's look. Very similar green board expected. And yeah, that fairway board's pretty similar too. So pars are better, 2.5 for most players. They've got some, I'd say, average level bogey avoiders out there on the board. Not that surprising. All right, before we hop on out of here, guys, I do want to look at the live stuff, give you guys an idea of what we're going to expect. In terms of weather for Sunday, looks like it's going to be a little bit windy, right? You've got slightly higher sustained winds than what we had today. And then your wind gusts, they also look maybe a little bit more nasty than what you had today. So when we take a look at the scoring average, you see it was easier for round 2. Well, it'll probably look a little bit more like round 1, right? It only played plus 0.44 today. Round 1, it played plus 1.35. For round 3, with tougher pins, as they always do for a Sunday slate, along with the slightly tougher winds, it's probably going to be at least 1.35 over, right? If not like 1.5, maybe even 2 strokes over par. But based on the volatility in the setups, today, golf course only played 7,390 yards. For round 1, it played nearly 7,600 yards. So it was about a 200-yard difference between the 2 rounds. If they tip it out once again, if they do use the Sunday pin locations, right, it'll probably be at least this 1.3 over par average. So when we get the board later, it's probably going to be a lot of fades, right? Perhaps overs for some of the strokes props that we're getting. And what we did today is we mixed them in with the PGA stuff. If you mix them in over here in prize picks, the payouts were a lot better. You didn't have the same sort of correlation, lowers in terms of payouts. And then over then Underdog, you don't have to deal with like the rules, right? You can take like 2 overs on strokes as long as one of them is a live prop and one of them is a PGA prop, which helps us out with actual like slip construction, right? Putting together combinations of 2 or 3 props. So that's what I would say for live. For PGA, let's see if there's any questions. But if not, I don't love the board. It's just looking like a better board over there in Underdog. Let's see. Anything on there? Nope. Looks like we're good to go. Alrighty, guys. That is all we're going to do here for the live stream on Sunday. Of course, guys, going to have all the content for the rest of the playoffs. We'll be there for the Tour Championship. So we're going to have boots on the ground there for East Lake. And looking forward to the BMW Championship next week. So best of luck out there for your Sunday exposure, whether it's for props or showdown. Hit that like button on the way out of here. And I'll see you guys for all the content for next week's golf tournament.